What happens when a Hollywood icon, loved for his charm and diplomacy, walks into a studio expecting a friendly conversation, and instead finds himself face to face with a question so sharp, so unexpected, that it slices straight through the calm he's known for. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to Stage View, smash that like button, and drop your thoughts in the comments as we unravel this tension-filled moment. Because what you're about to hear is the kind of confrontation daytime television rarely dares to show. The morning began like any other episode of The View. Lights humming softly overhead. Producers rushing across the brightly colored set. Audience members settling into their seats, buzzing at the thought of seeing George Clooney. The George Clooney, live just a few feet away. The air felt charged, as if everyone could sense something unusual humming beneath the surface, even though they didn't know what it was yet. Or maybe only he felt it. Backstage, Clooney stood in front of the mirror, tying the last neat fold of his tie. His reflection stared back at him. Older, yes, but still carrying the effortless confidence that had made him the unofficial king of Hollywood interviews. He was here to promote his latest project, a political drama, but his mind wasn't entirely in the room. Something had been weighing on him. Something he thought he'd successfully pushed aside. He took a slow breath. Cameras didn't intimidate him. Hard questions didn't intimidate him. But today something felt off. A stage manager peeked in. "George, you're on in 60 seconds. He nodded, smoothing his jacket. "Let's do it." As he stepped into the bright hallway leading to the set, the applause washed over him like warm surf. People stood up, clapping, some pulling out phones, others simply staring with the wide-eyed, starstruck awe only a few celebrities can still inspire. Clooney smiled, lifting a hand in a casual wave. The man could make entering a room look like slow-motion movie magic. He greeted the hosts one by one, Joy with her trademark smirk, Sarah with her upbeat energy, and Alyssa with her soon-to-be-tested calm. But when he reached Sunny Hostin, there was a noticeable shift, almost imperceptible, like the air tightening around them. She gave him a crisp smile that showed only the top row of her teeth. "Good to have you back, George," Sunny said, though something in her tone hinted at a deeper layer. He returned the smile. "Always a pleasure." The audience settled. The theme music faded. The cameras zoomed in. That subtle hum of anticipation swelled like a storm cloud. Joy opened the segment with warmth. "George Clooney, everyone. Now, George, you've been very busy in your new film." But Sunny didn't wait for Joy to finish the intro. She leaned forward, hands clasped like a lawyer preparing to cross-examine a witness. "George, before we get into the film, I want to address something a lot of people have been discussing lately." Joy's eyes widened slightly. Alyssa glanced between them. Clooney's face remained neutral, but only barely. Sunny continued, "You've been very vocal about certain political issues recently. And some critics, including fans, felt your comments were, well, a bit hypocritical. I think our viewers deserve to hear your honest thoughts about that." The air went dead silent. Even the audience, once electric with excitement, quieted into a stillness that felt almost unnatural. Somewhere, a camera operator shifted his stance. Clooney's smile faltered, just enough for the trained eye to notice. He leaned back slightly, as if Sunny's question had pushed him a few inches off center. "Hypocritical," he repeated, as though testing the texture of the word. "That's a strong choice of phrasing, Sunny." She didn't blink. "It's the phrasing being used." Joy let out a nervous chuckle. "Well, let's not." But Clooney lifted a finger, signaling that he was willing, maybe even compelled, to address it. "No, it's fine," he said, eyes locked on Sunny. "Let's talk about it." Sarah shifted uncomfortably. Alyssa straightened in her chair. The tension wasn't just present, it was alive, curling into every corner of the stage. Clooney crossed one leg over the other, collecting himself. "Look," he began, "I've always spoken my mind. Anyone who's followed my career knows I try to be thoughtful, even when people don't agree with me." Sunny shook her head. "Thoughtful, but perhaps selective?" A few audience members murmured, their reactions audible through the studio microphones. Clooney's jaw flexed, not anger necessarily, but a signal that something in him had snapped awake. He leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees. "Selective? That's an interesting interpretation. Care to explain what you mean by that?" Sunny held his gaze. "Well, when you speak out on certain issues but remain silent on others that some feel you should address, it raises questions." "Some feel," Clooney repeated. "Who exactly is some?" She let out a small breath that hinted at annoyance. "Your critics. Your audience." People who support you. And what about you, Sunny? Clooney countered, voice tightening. Do you think I'm hypocritical? The audience gasped, a wave of collective shock. Sunny blinked just once. Then she straightened her shoulders. I think when you hold yourself as a voice of reason, and as someone who demands accountability, then yes, you open yourself up to those same standards. Clooney's eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in analytical precision. The look of a man who wasn't expecting to be challenged, yet suddenly found himself in a battle he didn't ask for. Joy jumped in, attempting to smooth the moment. All right, let's bring it back to the film for a second. But again, the energy was beyond her control now. Clooney wasn't finished. You know, he said, voice low and steady. I've sat in a lot of interviews over the years. Some tough, some easy. But I've never had someone imply, on live television, that my values are performative. That's quite a moment. Sunny didn't back down. I didn't imply anything. I asked a question. The audience buzzed again. A ripple of excitement, discomfort, curiosity. A million emotions vibrating through the room. Clooney let out a single laugh, but there was no humor in it. It was a controlled exhale, the kind someone uses to stabilize themselves before stepping into deeper waters. All right, he said quietly. Then let me answer. Every camera tilted toward him. The hosts leaned in. Even the audience, hundreds of eyes fixed on a single man, seemed to lean forward as if pulled by invisible strings. Clooney continued. If people think I'm hypocritical because I don't speak out on every single thing that happens in this country or the world, then they misunderstand something fundamental about me. I speak when I have something meaningful to say, not when people expect me to. Sunny interjected. But that's exactly the point. Meaningful to whom? Because sometimes silence is a statement. Her voice cut through the air like a blade. Clooney's expression darkened, just a shade, but enough to shift the tone of the entire room. And sometimes, he replied, speaking just to satisfy an audience is the most hypocritical thing a person can do. The moment landed hard, like a verbal earthquake. A murmur rolled across the studio. Sarah whispered, wow. Alyssa typed something on her note card, probably a lifeline from the producers. But Sunny wasn't backing down. She tilted her head, studying him with a sharpness that almost seemed personal. So you're saying your critics don't matter? I'm saying, Clooney replied, that I don't tailor my convictions to fit the emotional needs of strangers. The tension swelled. A sudden crackle, like static, ran through the studio speakers. Someone in the control room muttered, "This is going viral." Sunny leaned in, voice low and deliberate. George, people don't want perfection. They want consistency. They want authenticity. And when your actions don't match your words, that's when people start asking questions. Clooney stared at her for a long, quiet moment. Almost too long. The audience held its collective breath. Then, very slowly, he said, "If you think you understand my actions, you're mistaken." The room felt like it dropped 10 degrees. For a split second, Sunny's expression cracked, a flicker of something raw, maybe frustration, maybe something deeper, but she quickly masked it with professionalism. Joy finally cut in, voice slightly shaky. "All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk more with George Clooney about his new film." The audience applauded, but the energy had changed. No longer warm, no longer excited. Now it pulsed with the tension of an invisible storm brewing right there on live television. The cameras cut to commercial, but the tension on set didn't fade. It thickened, becoming something almost physical, something the crew felt in their bones as they hurried across the stage pretending everything was normal. The audience whispered among themselves, unsure if what they'd witnessed was scripted drama or the beginning of something far more real. George Clooney remained seated, elbows on his knees, hands clasped loosely but tensely. His eyes stayed locked on the space in front of him, unfocused yet burning with something unsettled. Sunny Hostin adjusted the papers on her lap, though she wasn't really looking at them. Her breaths were steady, controlled, but her fingers trembled ever so slightly. A stage manager approached with a headset pressed to her ear. "We're back in 90 seconds, she said, tone gentle and cautious. The kind of tone used when someone is standing too close to the edge of something steep. Joy muttered to the crew member beside her, "I knew today was going to be spicy, but damn," then quickly masked her expression when she felt Clooney's gaze slide toward her. Sarah whispered to Alyssa, "Do you think the producers are freaking out right now?" Alyssa snorted under her breath. "Oh, they're writing emergency talking points as we speak." But Clooney wasn't listening. His attention had shifted to Sunny, who was trying, unsuccessfully, to pretend she didn't feel him watching her. "So that's how we're doing this today," he finally said, voice low enough that only the hosts could hear. Sunny raised her eyes slowly. "George, I asked a question." "No," he interrupted softly. "You made an accusation. There's a difference." Her lips tightened. "If that's how you interpreted it, that's on you." "It's how the entire room interpreted it," Clooney shot back. Sarah cleared her throat nervously. "Maybe we should." But the floor manager suddenly waved them into place. 30 seconds. Sunny straightened her cards. Clooney adjusted his jacket. The audience members stopped whispering and lifted their eyes toward the stage again, hungry, curious, unaware they were about to witness something far more intense than a celebrity interview. 10 seconds. The lights intensified. The theme music reemerged, polished and upbeat, in stark contrast to the storm brewing between the two people at the center of the set. 3, 2, 1. The music cut. Joy forced a smile. "Welcome back to The View. We're here with George Clooney, whose new film has already sparked some political discussion." But Clooney wasn't going to let Joy redirect the moment. He looked directly at Sunny, the intensity in his eyes magnified by the cameras. "I think we should finish what we started," he said. A ripple of gasps swept through the audience. Sunny blinked, visibly surprised. "You want to continue that conversation?" "I think it's important," Clooney replied, voice controlled but firm. "You questioned my integrity on national television. I think it's only fair we talk about that directly." Joy's breath hitched. "George, we don't usually." He held up a hand. "Joy, with all due respect," she opened the door. "I'm just walking through it." Sunny's jaw tightened, but she remained calm, professional, though something in her eyes flickered with apprehension. "All right then," she said. "Let's talk about consistency." Clooney shifted toward her, fully engaged. "Consistency isn't measured by how loudly someone speaks, Sunny. It's measured by the choices they make." "And I'm saying," Sunny countered, "that sometimes your silence is a choice. And people interpret that choice as selective activism." A murmur of agreement rippled through parts of the audience. Clooney heard it. He was too seasoned not to. He paused, running a thumb over the edge of his palm. A quiet gesture that betrayed lingering tension he normally concealed with expert precision. Then he said, "Do people really believe that someone has to comment on every tragedy, every political moment, every misstep in society to prove they care?" Sunny responded instantly. "If you position yourself as a public voice for morality and accountability, then yes, people expect you to be accountable too." Clooney let out a slow exhale. "That's not fair," he said quietly. "And more importantly, it's not realistic." "But that's the cost of influence," Sunny pressed. The atmosphere tightened again, like invisible strings pulling every muscle, every breath, every heartbeat on set. Clooney leaned forward. "And what about you, Sunny? You choose your moments too. You choose the stories you amplify. You choose when to speak and when not to. Does that make you hypocritical?" Sunny's eyes widened, but only for a second. "That's not the same thing," she said. "Why not?" Clooney asked sharply. "Because I'm not selling myself as a political figure or an activist," Sunny replied. "I'm a journalist. My job is to ask questions. Your job, when you choose to take up that mantle, is to be consistent." Suddenly the audience understood. This wasn't personal, but it was close. Clooney nodded slowly. "So you're saying I shouldn't speak at all unless I'm prepared to speak about everything?" "I'm saying," Sunny insisted, "that you shouldn't use your platform only when it's convenient." His eyes hardened. "That's a hell of a thing to say." A hush fell. Even Joy and Sarah were frozen now, their attempts to intervene abandoned. The producers had stopped sending notes. The control room was silent except for the soft hiss of headsets and someone muttering, "Oh my God, this is incredible, keep rolling." Sunny didn't flinch. "George, people admire you. They trust you. They want you to stand for something." Clooney leaned back slowly, almost wearily. "I do stand for something, but I refuse to be guilt-tripped into becoming a megaphone for every issue just to avoid being labeled hypocritical." Sunny's voice dropped a register, lower, more deliberate. "Then you need to accept that people will question your motives. And you need to accept," Clooney countered, "that sometimes your questions are framed to provoke, not to understand." This time the audience didn't just murmur, they reacted. Loud, unfiltered, involuntary. Some gasped. Some clapped. Others whispered, "He's not wrong," while others muttered, "He shouldn't have said that." Sunny inhaled sharply. For the first time all morning, emotion flickered across her face, Not anger, but something wounded. Something caught off guard. Alyssa reached out slightly, as if wanting to diffuse it. Maybe we should. But Sunny regained her composure. She straightened in her seat and said, George, everything I ask is rooted in facts. In accountability. It's not personal. Clooney watched her carefully. I know it's not personal, he said, but it felt targeted. And sometimes accountability feels that way, Sunny replied. Not when it's fair, Clooney insisted. A beat. A long, heavy beat. Then a crack. Not loud, not dramatic, but quiet enough that only the closest microphones caught it. Sunny's voice softened. You think I'm being unfair? I think, Clooney said, voice breaking through the tension like a slow blade, that you're forgetting I'm a human being. Not an institution. Not a political machine. Just a guy who tries his best. The silence that followed was different now. Less fiery. More fragile. Sunny stared at him, truly stared at him, and something in her chest shifted. A flicker of empathy trying to fight its way through. George, she said quietly, I wasn't trying to attack you. I know, he replied. But it still felt like it. The audience exhaled, a collective breath they didn't know they'd been holding. Then, unexpectedly, Clooney looked down, rubbed the bridge of his nose, and said, Maybe I could have handled it better. Joy's head snapped up. Wait, are we having a moment of self-reflection on the view? The audience laughed nervously. Sunny nearly smiled. Nearly. Clooney continued. Look, I'm not perfect. And yeah, I pick and choose what I speak about. But I do it because I want my words to matter, not because I'm trying to protect my image. Sunny nodded slowly. And maybe, I could have asked the question differently. Maybe, Clooney replied with a small, wry grin. For a second, it seemed like the storm might pass. But storms don't end just because the clouds clear. Sometimes they wait, quietly, for the next spark. And that spark, the one that would turn this tense exchange into a full-blown confrontation, was only minutes away. Joy glanced at the cue card in her hand, then looked at the producer frantically signaling from the wings. She swallowed hard and said, When we come back, we're going to touch on a topic George may not be expecting. The blood drained from Clooney's face. Sunny's eyes widened in surprise. Alyssa whispered, Oh no, oh no. Sarah grabbed Joy's hand. Joy, what did you just say? Joy forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The audience tensed. George Clooney leaned back in his chair, bracing himself. Whatever was coming next, it wasn't going to be gentle. It was going to be the moment that turned this interview into a headline-making explosion. And no one, not even Clooney, was ready for it. As the cameras powered down and the applause faded, Clooney and Sunny remained locked in a silent stare, two forces unwilling to yield. And neither knew that what would happen next would be so explosive, so unexpected, it would ignite headlines around the world. The moment Joy said the words, a topic George may not be expecting, something shifted in the air. A subtle tightening, a subtle awareness, like every molecule inside the studio suddenly understood that a boundary was about to be crossed. The audience murmured. Sunny sat back, confused but alert. Clooney, however, went absolutely still. He recognized that kind of phrasing. It was the setup for ambush journalism, the kind he'd spent decades avoiding. But this time, he was trapped. Cameras rolling. Audience watching. Millions at home waiting. Before anyone could clarify, the theme music swelled and the screen. The moment the off-air light blinked red, Clooney leaned toward Joy, eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? Joy held up her hands as though she were innocent. It's not me. Producers suggested it. Suggested what? Clooney pressed, tone sharper than before. Sunny's brows furrowed. Joy, what's going on? Joy hesitated, a rare sight, and the hesitation was enough to send a ripple of unease across the table. Clooney leaned further forward, voice low and controlled. If this is about my personal life, he said slowly, we're not doing that. Joy shook her head. Not your personal life. Something else. Clooney's jaw flexed. Something else. A producer rushed to the table, whispering urgently. Joy listened, her expression shifting into something almost apologetic. When she looked at Clooney, her eyes were soft. They want you to address the comments you made last month. About the industry. About the people in it. Clooney froze. Sunny's breath caught. Oh! Alyssa's hand flew to her mouth. Wait, those comments? The ones everyone debated for weeks. Clooney's voice turned to ice. I already clarified those. The producer leaned in again. They want you to clarify them here. People want answers. Clooney stared at him. Hard. Intense. His eyes didn't blink once. Do you have any idea what kind of backlash that segment caused? He said quietly. Do you have any idea how many people twisted my words? The producer took a half step back. George, it's trending again. This is your chance. Clooney stood up. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But the entire table jolted as if the ground shifted. Sunny instinctively reached out. George. No, Clooney said, shaking his head. I'm not doing this. But the stage manager called out urgently. We're live in 10 seconds. Clooney closed his eyes, inhaling through his nose, then lowering himself back into the chair like a man preparing to walk willingly into a fire he couldn't avoid. He whispered, almost to himself, This is going to get ugly. Sunny swallowed hard, watching him with growing concern. Joy's face was pale. Sarah kept glancing at the cameras, at Clooney, at the producers, like a trapped animal. Alyssa muttered, This is a disaster. The countdown began. 3, 2, 1. The lights came back up. Joy plastered on a smile that trembled at the edges. Welcome back to The View. Before the break, we mentioned we'd be discussing something important, a topic that sparked a lot of public reaction. Clooney stared forward, face unreadable. Sunny glanced at him from the side, unsure whether to jump in or stay quiet. Joy continued, voice soft but tense. George, last month you made a series of comments about the Hollywood system. Comments that many people interpreted as calling out your colleagues, even your friends. The response was intense. The audience murmured, remembering. Clooney didn't speak. Joy waited, then continued. A lot of viewers wrote in asking why you said what you said, and if you stand by it. So we wanted to give you the chance to clarify. Silence. Long, unsettling silence. Sunny finally spoke. George, do you want to address it? Slowly, painfully slowly, Clooney lifted his eyes. And when he did, the anger there was unmistakable. Do I want to address it? He repeated. Sunny nodded once. Then the storm began. I made comments, Clooney said, voice deep and measured, about how certain people in the industry behave behind closed doors. About the double standards we pretend don't exist. And I said it because I was tired of the hypocrisy. Sunny blinked. But people took it as you calling out. I know how they took it, Clooney snapped, not at her, but at the entire situation. And what frustrates me is that they ignored the actual point. They twisted it to make headlines. The audience murmured again. Clooney leaned into the camera, his expression deadly calm. You want clarity? He asked. Here it is. Joy whispered. Oh boy. Clooney continued. Hollywood is broken. Not because of the actors. Not because of the audience. But because we've created a culture where people only care when it benefits them. Where truth is optional. Where loyalty lasts only as long as the next headline. Sunny's eyes widened. The honesty, the rawness, the intensity. She hadn't expected this. And yes, George said, I called people out. Maybe I should have been more specific. But I stand by the truth of what I said. Sunny opened her mouth, hesitated, then finally spoke. But George, why now? Why say it publicly? He turned to her slowly. Because someone had to, he said. And I'm tired of pretending everything is fine. Then, unexpectedly, Sunny said something that changed everything. George, the issue wasn't what you said. It was that people felt you were criticizing others for behaviors you yourself once engaged in. Dead silence. Clooney's breath hitched. The hosts froze. The audience gasped, loudly this time, people clutching their chests, leaning forward, whispering in shock. Clooney's eyes darkened. What exactly are you implying? Sunny didn't back down. I'm asking if you think it's fair to call out a system you benefited from for decades without acknowledging your own role in it. It was a knife disguised as a question. And Clooney felt the blade. He leaned forward slowly. Sunny, you're reaching. Am I? She pressed. Because that's what critics are saying. Clooney's voice dropped to a low warning tone. You're crossing lines you don't understand. The tension wasn't tension anymore. It was suffocation. Sunny held his gaze. I'm doing my job. No, Clooney said. You're taking a shot at my character. And you don't think your comments took a shot at others? Sunny countered. Alyssa whispered. This is bad, someone stop this. Sarah muttered. This is not salvageable. Joy looked like she was praying. Clooney took a breath, a deep, simmering breath meant to contain something volatile. Sunny, he said quietly, I've always respected you. Always. But this. She cut in. Then respect me enough to answer honestly. He stared at her. Long, hard. Searching for something. maybe patience, maybe restraint. But what he found instead was the last spark needed to ignite the explosion. Fine, he said. You want honesty? The audience leaned in as if pulled by gravity. Clooney's voice sharpened. I spoke out because I'm tired of being part of a machine that rewards silence. I'm tired of watching people I admire get punished for telling the truth. And I'm tired of pretending the industry hasn't protected the wrong people for too long. Sunny inhaled sharply. So you do think you contributed to that culture? Clooney's jaw tightened. I think, he said, that I tried to do the right things when I could. And I think I've made mistakes. But I won't let you, or anyone, rewrite my intentions. Sunny softened, but only slightly. I wasn't trying to rewrite them. I was asking you to acknowledge the complexity. Clooney looked at her with something like frustration mixed with disbelief. I did, but you're asking me to hold myself to a moral bar that no one else is expected to reach. Everyone should be held to it, Sunny insisted. Then where are the questions for everyone else? Clooney demanded. Why am I the only one sitting here being dissected? Sunny hesitated, and that hesitation told him everything. You see, Clooney said, leaning back. That's the hypocrisy. The audience erupted, some clapping, some gasping, some whispering furiously. Sunny's cheeks flushed, not with embarrassment, but with intensity. George, she said softly, that's not fair. Neither is this interview, he fired back. The hosts froze. The tension wasn't just visible now. It was vibrating, trembling, filling every inch of air like static before lightning strikes. And then, right then, a voice crackled through the host's earpieces. The producer. Urgent. Panicked. Cut. 2. Break. Joy shot up from her chair. We'll be right back. The cameras faded. The lights dimmed. But the confrontation was far from over. Because the moment the cameras stopped rolling, George Clooney stood up. Sunny Hostin stood up. And the real explosion, the off-air confrontation that would leak within hours, was about to ignite. The moment the cameras cut to commercial, the studio fell into a chaotic hush. Not silence, but the tense, uneven breathing of dozens of people who had just watched something they were never supposed to see. Crew members froze where they stood. Audience members whispered feverishly, some already fumbling for their phones. Even the hosts sat stiff and stunned, unsure whether to speak or stay silent. George Clooney didn't move at first. He stood rigid, his hands gripping the edge of the table so tightly the veins rose against his skin. Sunny Hostin rose slowly, too, a measured breath pulling her shoulders back as she met his eyes. This time, their faces were inches apart. No cameras, no audience applause, no intermediary of daytime TV politeness. George, she began. Don't, he said sharply, cutting her off as the adrenaline still coursed through him. You knew exactly what you were doing. Sunny blinked, hurt flickering across her face. I was asking the questions people needed answers to. That wasn't a question, Clooney snapped. That was judgment. Wrapped in journalism, sure, but still judgment. He stepped away from the table, pacing, running a hand through his hair. The bright studio lights cast long shadows behind him now, turning his controlled composure into something raw, exposed. Sunny followed him, not aggressively, but with purpose. George, listen to me. You've been calling out the industry. You've been challenging the system. I respect that, but you can't ask to have those conversations on your terms alone. He turned sharply. On my terms? Sunny, you ambushed me. You think I enjoy this? She fired back. You think I want to be the person challenging someone I admire? I was doing my job, the job I do with everyone who sits in that chair. Clooney exhaled through his nose, quiet but explosive. It didn't feel like a job. It felt like a hit. Sunny took a step closer, forcing him to meet her gaze. No, it was accountability. And if you want to lead the conversations you're starting, you need to be open to the uncomfortable parts too. Clooney stared at her, anger swirling with confusion, frustration mixing with something almost like disappointment. I came here to talk about a film. And you came with unresolved things weighing on you, Sunny said gently. Don't put that all on me. Their voices were low, but the crew could hear everything. Sarah had her hands pressed over her mouth. Alyssa sat stone still. Joy whispered a prayer to someone, anyone, that this wouldn't spiral further. The stage manager hurried over. We're back in 40 seconds. Please, everyone, take your seats. But Clooney and Sunny didn't move. Sunny tried again, softer this time. George, if you meant what you said about speaking truth, about wanting change, then you have to accept the scrutiny that comes with it. Clooney's voice dropped to a quiet growl. And you have to accept that I'm not your villain. The line hit her, harder than either expected. Sunny pressed her lips together, nodding slowly, not in agreement, but in acknowledgement of the wound between them. I never said you were. The stage manager called out louder, more desperate. 20 seconds. Clooney finally sank back into his chair, but the tension still radiated from him like heat off asphalt. Sunny returned to her seat too, though her expression had softened, a rare, unguarded look few ever saw. They faced forward, pretending composure. It failed. Every camera in the studio sensed it. The fracture, the quiet tremor of human emotion slipping through the cracks of celebrity polish. 3, 2, 1. The live broadcast snapped back on. Joy jumped in immediately, her voice trembling but determined. We're back with George Clooney and... But before she could pivot into the script the producers were screaming into her earpiece, Clooney lifted a hand. Joy, he said softly. Let me say something. The hosts froze. The audience leaned forward. Sunny looked at him, surprised. Clooney drew a breath, long, grounded, vulnerable. What happened before the break, he began, voice steadying, wasn't planned. And I want to make something clear. Sunny challenged me, and maybe I reacted more strongly than I should have. I'm passionate. I care. Sometimes that comes out harder than intended. Sunny blinked, slightly stunned. Clooney continued. I don't think Sunny was wrong to ask those questions. I think I wasn't ready to answer them. The audience murmured, a softer murmur this time, touched with empathy. Sunny spoke quietly. George. He glanced at her, then back to the crowd. I've been thinking a lot lately. About my role in this industry. About the mistakes I've made, the blind spots I've had. And yes, I've benefited from systems that weren't always fair. That's true. But I am trying. I'm trying to be better, to do better. The studio felt smaller suddenly, like everyone had been pulled into a circle of truth that celebrity interviews rarely enter. He turned fully toward Sunny. And if it didn't sound like it earlier, I do respect you. A lot. I know where your questions came from. Sunny inhaled sharply. Not defensive this time, emotional. She nodded. Thank you, really. But she wasn't done. I respect you too, George, she said. And I ask hard questions because people trust you. They look up to you. They want to understand who you are beneath the charisma. Clooney's expression softened, losing the hard edges that had defined the past hour. Fair enough, he whispered. For a moment, a brief, suspended moment, everything felt like it was healing. Then Joy, unable to contain herself, suddenly exclaimed, Well, how about a round of applause before we all burst into tears? The audience laughed, relieved, releasing tension they'd been holding in their chests. Applause erupted. Some people cheered. Others sighed. The energy shifted like a wave washing away broken glass. But it wasn't over. Not really. Because when the segment officially ended, and Clooney made his exit down the narrow hallway to the green room, whispers followed him like shadows. Crew members exchanged looks. Producers huddled. The audience murmured nonstop, replaying the confrontation over and over. Each person convinced they had witnessed something historic. Sunny stayed behind, staring at her cards, exhaling shakily. What a mess, Alyssa muttered. Or a breakthrough, Sarah offered cautiously. Joy fanned herself. Either way, this episode is going to run all weekend. She wasn't wrong. By the time Clooney reached the corridor, his phone was already buzzing. Publicists. Friends. Media alerts. Twitter mentions exploding like firecrackers. Clips were leaking. Someone in the audience had recorded everything during the commercial break. Someone else had posted the heated exchange moments after the show ended. Explosion wasn't the word. It was wildfire. Every news outlet ran the story. Every entertainment blog dissected the confrontation frame by frame. Social media turned the disagreement into a cultural referendum about celebrity, activism, accountability, journalism, ego, transparency. Some defended Clooney passionately. Some praised Sunny for holding him accountable. Others criticized both. But everyone talked about it. Nonstop. Hashtags trended. Hashtag Clooney versus Sunny. Hashtag The View confrontation. Hashtag when interviewers push back. Hashtag George explodes on The View. Clips amassed millions of views by evening. Opinion panels sprouted across networks. Hollywood insiders chimed in. Politicians weighed in. Fans wrote essays. Critics filmed reaction videos. And at the center of it, two people who never asked for this storm. Clooney sat alone in his hotel room that night, staring at the ceiling. Not angry anymore. Not defensive. Just tired. and wondering where exactly things had gone wrong. Sunny sat in her dressing room, eyes on the glowing phone screen, reading messages from viewers, some praising her courage, others calling her unfair. She closed her eyes, whispered a quiet prayer, and wondered if she had pushed too far. But beneath all the noise, something unexpected was happening. People were talking, really talking, about accountability, responsibility, double standards, and the challenges of speaking publicly while existing in systems built on contradiction. A messy confrontation had sparked a difficult conversation, one the world clearly needed. And now, it's your turn. What do you think? Was Clooney unfairly cornered? Was Sunny right to push him? Did the conversation go too far? Or exactly where it needed to go? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell us which side you're on, or if you think both had valid points. And if you want more explosive, emotional, cinematic breakdowns of the biggest celebrity moments and dramatic confrontations, subscribe to Stage View, like the video, and share it with someone who loves a good Hollywood showdown. Because this story isn't finished, not really. Not as long as conversations like this keep sparking around the world. And on Stage View, we'll be here to tell every electrifying chapter.